Dr. Faustino Quintanilla。接下来感谢今天有一些在 CUNY 的人来参加。It's AVP for Governmental and External Relations Office of the President. Let's welcome Jeffrey Rosenstock. Hi. 接下来 let's welcome Director of Strategic Partnership and Development, Julia Palacio. Hi, welcome. 那接下来我们来邀请我们欢迎 Armatic Advisory 创办人、艺术顾问 the founder and art consultant, Anwari Musa. Musa, OK. 接下来我们欢迎 TCCMA 我们的北美台湾商会会长 the President of TCCMA Joy 江俊霖总会长，欢迎。接下来欢迎我们千口经济文化办事处华侨文教服务中心的主任陈永峰主任，欢迎，以及我们协和门窗 Thomas Chen 陈秋慧董事长，欢迎。然后我们来欢迎林慧香，我们世界商会名誉总会长林慧香女士，欢迎。还有接下来是十方艺术空间创办人 ，Founder of Gallery OVO Julia， 欢迎。下一个我们欢迎美林财富管理资深财务顾问 ，The Senior Vice President of Merrill Lynch。我们欢迎冯女士，有吗？接下来是纽约州注册的会计师协会主席魏丽人会计师，欢迎。OK， 然后刚刚也介绍了几位艺术家了，然后等一下我们会欢迎大家在外面就是看艺术家的作品们，跟他们有一些交流。那接下来呢，我们要请就是贵宾致辞。首先我们欢迎我们的北美商会总会长 TCCMA 江俊霖总会长来帮我们致辞，谢谢。
Distinguished guests， 各位贵宾，大家好，我是北美洲台湾商会联合总会江俊霖。发展正在颠覆我们许多事物的理解和操作方式，艺术收藏也不例外。从创作到鉴定，从交易到展示 ，AI 技术正逐渐改变艺术品的价值链。借由这次论坛，我们可以探讨这些变化，以及 AI 对台美艺术收藏界带来的机遇与挑战。像是 AI 在艺术创作中的应用。AI 不仅能够模仿大师的风格，还能创造出全新的艺术形态，不仅为艺术市场带来新的活力可能性，同时我们也要面对 AI 生成艺术品的版权和真伪问题。另外，我们将探讨 AI 在艺术品鉴定的交易的应用。AI 可以通过大数据和机器学习，快速而准确地分析艺术品的真伪和价值，这会提升交易的效率和安全性。此外 ，AI 的技术还能为艺术品的展示和保护提供新的方法。虚拟现实和实境技术让观众可以在数位环境中近距离欣赏艺术品，而无需担心损坏。这可以提升观赏体验，也为艺术品的保护提供新的方法。今天的论坛有安排专家的分享。然后或许我们可以从中得到一些新的想法和商业的可能性。接下来我们艺术品不仅是文化和美的象征，更是一种投资工具，是许多像在场各位一样大家关心的议题。当然，今天我们一定要跟我们陈秋贵董事长请教。 如何在艺术品的交易当中呢，来合法避税。然后呢，减少个人或企业的税务负担。或许我们陈董事长可以提点大家如何选择适合的捐赠对象，以及在捐赠过程中最大化的税务优惠。最后我要感谢所有筹备这次论坛的工作人员，要感谢所有的讲者与会者，感谢你们的支持与参与，谢谢。
谢谢我们Joy张俊总会长。然后像张总会长也提到了 AI 是现在就是很 popular 的一个 trend。然后 same to and I hope you will enjoy the panel talk later. OK， 接下来我们来邀请我们的陈秀慧董事长，欢迎给我们支持。
Morning, everyone. Distinguished guests, good morning. Because you will never teach me more English. 好，那我们今天诚挚的欢迎大家来到纽约，也因为这次北美总会在这里办，所以大家都有机会来跟大家欢迎各位，来看到很多的老朋友。都是很成功的企业家，所以这次就办这个讲座来让大家能够从这边呢，用很容易的办法，还有用可以帮助，最多是帮助台湾的年轻艺术家在提升他们的国际知名度。当然我们是以美国优先，美国这边今天台美关系也是空前的好。所以美国的文化界对台湾的艺术的认同度也大大的提升，所以我希望用这个机会来跟大家各位介绍。那我很幸运，我在20几年前就一直接触艺术，我这里很多老师都在这里，像美华还有他们法斯蒂诺，大家都给我很多指导，帮我很多忙。所以在这里我很多心得。那我其实一般就是我一听到有什么好的 idea， 我都会去试做，就从小做，那做来有一些小学习的。那今天我们请很多很有经验的讲者，他们来的话会跟大家讲这个整个操作方式，然后希望说我们各位都是相当成功的财商所以希望说大家借这个好的机会，能够为我们自己节省大量的税还有投资它的回报是很难用做生意这个概念来算，它有时候几十倍甚至几百倍那我希望说大家都一起来享有这次这个就是台美这个机会那台湾的艺术家在美国一直被低估我们低估了，我们感到很可惜被低估很可惜。所以现在是一个很好的机会。那这次我们也特别拜托Julie两位Julie样跟Julie董他们过来这边呢，来协助这个来大家一起来创造这个平台，一起来享受这个美国的这个优惠的这些政策还有美国也是目前世界最大的艺术市场。那感谢各位，我希望说各位今天过来以后都有非常好的收获，那继续再走下去。好，谢谢各位。
谢谢我们陈秀慧董事长的致辞。然后接下来我们要邀请我们的经济文化办事处陈永峰主任帮我们致辞，谢谢。
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it's such an honor to attend our Art for Collection and Tax Reduction forum. On behalf of the Taipei Economy and Cultural Office, I would like to extend my best wish for all the forum and actually have a wonderful discussion. 今天很高兴代表经济文化办事处，同时也是我们侨中心来参加我们的这个艺术的一个节税的一个讲座。那我想做一个公务员，我可能这个离这个艺术这个收集大概很远了我大概没有这个机会。不过今天很高兴看到台商的朋友到我们这个场合来一起来讨论这样的一个这个一个 forum 我想对我们台上的朋友很有帮助。那就像刚才陈董事长讲的其实对我们艺术的收藏，对我们年轻的艺术创作家更有一些可以有一个实质的帮助那在此在这边再一次预祝大家这个讨论会成功，谢谢大家，谢谢。
接下来我们来邀请这个现任纽约大学教授，前任纽约市文化局，然后他曾任皇后博物馆馆长 PS1 MoMA 副馆长，纽约市公共艺术部门主任。This amazing man has worked as a curator, educator, museum director, and head of a public funding agency, including 12 years each at PS1 MoMA, the Queen's Museum, and the New York City Department of Cultural Affairs. Let's welcome Tom Fingerhall.
So thank you so much. And I'm going to be just giving some thoughts about collecting quite quickly. And when I think about collecting, and I know that there's wonderful gallerists and artists and curators in the room, but there are ways in which it can be investment. And let me just tell you a story about my own family. When my father left graduate school, he felt like he needed to get a real job in business. So he got a job which he really did not like, but he had some money. He was making big money by our family standards. And he, with my mother, came to New York and he bought a painting at a gallery for $2,500. So that would be, it was $250, but $2,500 by our dollars. So some money, $250 for them was an investment. Several years later, he hated his job. He had two things that were valuable. One was a vintage car, and one was this painting. So this painting, he was able to sell for $3,000. That went from $250 to $3,000. That's $30,000 now. He sold the car. He took time off. He wrote a book, and he got a job in academia, the job that he had been dreaming of. So that investment was an incredible investment, from $250, or just think about it, from $2,500 to $30,000 in 2 years. That painting, if I had it today, is now worth $5 million. So big family disaster at some level. The artist was named Franz Klein. He's an important artist in the abstract expressionist. But my family never regretted it. He changed his life by making an investment and selling something when he needed to sell it to change his life. That having been said, most everything else we bought is not worth the money that have been in our family for a long period of time. My father's family is immigrants. They really lost everything when they came. But my mother's family's been here for a long time. So we have portraits from the family from 100 years ago, 150 years ago. I don't really know how much those are worth to anybody but us. But to us, they are worth, they're priceless. So that thing of having stuff that's meaningful for you, having stuff meaningful for your family, artists who are friends of the family, artists who paint something of your family is very meaningful. And the other thing I'll finally say is, when I was Commissioner of Cultural Affairs, we wanted to figure out what is the value to art to the city. Many studies had already been done saying art is very good for the economy. I think we all know that, that cities that have a lot of tourist economy, a lot of it is for the arts. So in New York City, we had, or pre-COVID, we had 70 million visitors coming, and half of them said that they came at least partially for the arts. That's all fine and good. It's very good for the economy. But that kind of analysis only said what was good for sort of the big museums in Manhattan and tourism. So we did a study, it was called the Social Impact of the Arts. Social Impact of the Arts took hundreds of thousands or millions of data points, and it proved that communities that have arts activity, defined as artists in the community, nonprofit arts in the community, and participation in the community in the arts, were healthier, had better educational outcomes, and were safer, but especially healthier. The incidence of high blood pressure and diabetes in communities which are rich in art was really surprisingly strongly correlated with arts activity. So when you think about investing in the arts, and you think about investing in, let's say, artists who live in the Taiwanese community in Flushing, or anywhere in the world, or non-Taiwanese artists, or whatever, think about the fact that by supporting artists and supporting arts activities, you're doing something that's actually very good also for the community in all these different ways aside from art, meaning health, education, and safety. So I want to encourage everybody to think about collecting. You might hit a bonanza, you might make a big mistake like my family did by misjudging and when to sell. But you can also just transform your life in a way and transform the life of your community by believing in and investing in artists. So I really want to encourage you to do it for all those different reasons. It's not just economic, it's personal and it's social. Okay, thank you so much.
I would also like to consider collecting, but if you know next time if there's any $250, let me know, please. I'll give you my number. Okay. Oh, question.
Yes.
So first, I want to know, are you Mets fan?
Of course.
Oh my goodness,
I mean,
we cannot be
yeah.
friends. I'm Yankees. Okay. We can still
You're
talk.
in Queens.
Okay, so we can still talk about art. So my question to you is, because I know you are very, very strong associated with the Asian community in Great New York. And do you see yourself, can you actually cross this cultural line and ask, I don't know, what is your heritage? Are you Jewish or?
Yeah, Jewish and Christian. Go ahead.
And so, how do you believe actually we can cross our cultural line and grow up in a different community and area and background, but still collecting like you collecting the Asian contemporary art?
I'll say two things to that. One is, I've traveled a lot in Asia. Actually, thanks to Lucia Lee, I've been invited to Taiwan many times. I'm hoping to go back again in the fall. So travel and being there, not just understanding the culture from the point of view of here, but understanding where people are from is important. The other thing is my wife is Chinese, so that might be a hint. You know, so because my wife is a curator, a longtime curator at the Brooklyn Museum, and because I've been a curator, you're really not supposed to collect. It is considered an ethical reason. So we've had many opportunities to collect artists who have become very famous. Li Mingwei, for example, is an artist I helped my wife help create his career, Taiwanese artist. We have no work of his. We've collected sort of stuff on the margins, but not artists we've worked with. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you again. And next, let's have a group photo together. So let's welcome all the guests. Come to the stage. The person I mentioned, everyone, come to the stage. 李美华执行长，然后我们的Tom Philippou and 我们的林桂香明日总会长，Dr. Fassino Catanilla, and Julia Pelosio, Jeffrey Rosenstock, 然后我们的Amari Musa, Joy 总会长 陈永峰主任、陈秋慧董事长、Julia 我们的十方艺术空间创办人，然后我们的美林财富总顾问冯明女士，还有魏丽人会计师。以及刚刚对，好，然后我们也请我们的6位艺术家上台，好吗？小心，6位艺术家上台，谢谢。苏一荣、苏院长、邱建仁、胡建新、杨金池、林怡玲，还有曲巧涵，请上台。Okay, thank you everyone. And then next, let's welcome the Executive Director of Queen's Laurel Community College, CUNY Art Gallery. Let's welcome Dr. Fassino Quintanilla to give us a talk. He's going to be discussing the topics art, writing, personal investments, and community benefits. 论艺术收藏私人企业跟社区效益。Thank you.
Well, welcome to everybody. I'm not going to speak in Taiwanese because you will fall asleep. Probably you fall asleep in English too. But anyway, we are very involved with the cultural part in Queen's Laurel Community College with the Taiwanese art. For the last couple of years, we have executed many exhibitions, and we are all the time trying to figure it out how to achieve more cultural things to bring to the community. From the time I went to Taiwan, that it has become very important to me. It inspired me to, in a lot of ways, to develop some kind of cultural exchange. There was many things that we spoke in those days, and unfortunately with COVID-19, everything went out the window. But there's still, I am very much into trying to resolve, to bring it back the students from there, from the international English school, from the high school in there, and bring it here to the United States to have 2 years degree, so they can go back to the communities and exercise more efficient whatever office you're going to have to do, like nursing, or engineering, or electronics. And 2 years college was very appropriate for them. Unfortunately, that went out of the website, like I said, due to the COVID-19. But I would like it to, and I am trying to, rehabilitate that idea. The best way to do it is create We have talked about very much about donations and about art and how to help artists personally. And the only way I figured it out is to create a fund in which this is manageable, and every year you can give in a scholarship to bring somebody here, or to purchase art and donate it to some museum, or try to involve the community more in these exhibitions that we do. Up to now, we are very successful with that, but we needed to continue more stronger. And the rest, in the way of collecting, I wanted to add something to what our friend told you before. Collecting to me is a few stages. One could then don't have any money, and this is probably 90% of the people, but this don't mean that you can collect. And why you collect is because you like it. You go to a show, you see some drawing or some painting that you like it, because you think that you're going to make a lot of money, and you purchase because you're going to live with it. This is something that's going to inspire you, make you be more oriented to the spirit. A lot of times we forgot. The other is money-making type thing, which is you purchase work to donate and have tax write-outs, or to sell it in a few years and make a lot of money. And the other is to educational purposes. And that is what we are into. Queensborough Community College Art Gallery, all the pieces we have there, they have been donated. We don't have any money to purchase, and I think it's great. Because this way, where you can create it is a group of works that people in the community it can relate to. You can come in there and get spiritually and artistically elevated by these works. So that's to me what the collection is supposed to be. The tax part, well, the tax part, I should anybody that is into these things know, is 1/3 of the money that you have, or estimated money to the painting work, is what you can deduct it. And fortunately, these couple of years, this year and the next year, you can deduct the 60% of the total income, that you have. So if you take the total income and you divide by 50%, or 60% better this year and next year, you can deduct that. You don't have to deduct it all at once, you can deduct it 2 years. So this basically is what I would like to tell you. I respond much better with questions than with talking. So if you have any questions, I can try to resolve them.
Anyone has any questions? Yes?
How does an artist know how much his or her work is?
Well, the artists at the sample all the time try to get the highest prices, but the only way to know market-wise, okay, when you go to the market, is the way that you have exhibited and the values that they have put in these galleries. When you have auction houses, they have sell or auction your works, and that is to establish the price of your work. At the sample, if you have Andy Warhol in 1975, I think it was, one of these little drawings that he did, or short films, it was $750. Today it's maybe $14 million. So That's how the thing works. And why they come $40 million? From the rarity of the piece, as well for all the sales that he have done over the years. So that's how the price is put together.
Any other questions?
But like I said, the best thing to do is buy things that you like it. No things that you're looking for money. Because you are the one you have to live with, and you were the one that you're going to put it in the walls. And you're not going to have disappointments later on. Okay?
I also have a question.
Yeah.
So, like, that question was pretty good. I also want to know how the young artists can price out their work. But like, what's the process to like doing the artwork like even more valuable? Like now, for example, Jean Basquiat, like his work is like crazy more than Andy Warhol, you know, selling
Well,
price.
like I said, most of this, a lot of the times it's a fashion, you know, that it become the galleries, and other people that push for. I give you an example. When Jackson Pollock, it was in the galleries, they don't sell too much, and it's all very cheap. But what happened is they took it, they sold it to Metropolitan Museum, they did a couple of exhibitions, they get publications, and all of a sudden, overnight, he become the greatest painters in the world. So it's a matter of marketing more than anything else.
Yeah, okay.
And money, because you know how money you can do marketing.
So how does this young artist to do the marketing? Do they need to go to an agency, a gallery, or can they do it by themselves? Or?
Well, if you have money, you can do it by yourself. But I think the best to do, don't think about money. The artist, what he's supposed to do is paint or do art. Don't worry about it become famous and become about have money. The definition of the artist is the one who have a good time and die hungry. The one who make the money is later on. He himself, if he's a good artist, he never make any money. Think about Van Gogh, as example. Think about any of these big guys that we know. The only one that we know can make a lot of money and living was Picasso, because he have a lot of money to start with.
Okay, thank you. Any other? We'll probably do the Q&A later. Later, okay? Like we're gonna do a Q&A later in the section, and then we will welcome the next speaker. Okay. speaker, Julia， 十方艺术空间的创办人董怡之女士。她要跟我们介绍的这个 topic 是the current state of art collection in the age of AI technology revolution。
谢谢 Ashley， 我借一下你的 stand， 因为可能需要使用话术。Hello everyone, I'm Julia Tong. I'm from Taiwan and I'm a gallery owner for 12 years already. And it's an honor to meet everyone here. Can we have the next one? Yeah. So beginning as a primary market agent, but I also co-founded the first NFT art fair, which happened in 2021-2022, and that kind of changed the younger generation markets. And I feel that participating in the technology in artwork and application will create the next wave under the AI generation. So this time, we're gonna start from the beginning. We're gonna do primary market first. So please, next one. So this is my gallery show in the primary market in 2015, and it was Chris Kuhn, the first overseas solo exhibition in Taipei. And this is a wonderful example, just echoing Dr. Fassino, like how art can change our life, both financially and personally. So this one was sold for $7,000 USD in primary market. And within 5 years, next slide, my collector, he released it to Philips auction for around 200,000 USD. So that's a big jump for 5 years. That's how primary markets grow into secondary market. And that's echoing to Faustino's notes that how art can change our life, both personally and financially. Okay, so that's how the gallery's job, just promoting. And please, next one. So, but here I want to focus on how entrepreneur can support art and achieving SDG, which we always talk about how sustainably pieces from local artists, 20 pieces from international artists. Because we believe in our world there shouldn't be any boundary, especially we are now at the Web 3.0 age now. So we try to break down the frontier and the boundary. And this is how the new headquarters is. And please, next one. And this is, we're using the 5G technology to create a big installation by AR. So with your phone, you can see a huge sculpture in the Lantern Festival. 中秋节的那个灯节，很大的灯笼。那你要去做这么大的 scale， 你其实是花很多材料去做，可能4层楼、5层楼高的作品。但用 AI 技术呢，你只需要用软体跟你的电话，你就可以享受到那种临场感跟震撼感。但这个期间，其实你是可以省下很多废料跟碳排的。So we created like a 5-floor high art installation by AR, and it's sponsored by Taiwan government in Taiwan for the Lantern Festival. Please, the next one. And this is the first NFT art installation in Taiwan. So I also did the public art in Taiwan as well. So, but back to the point. Why we are here is to introduce you 3 artists from Taiwan that they are here. And I want to save my time because it's actually behind the schedule. So I want to start the introduction for the artists right now. And the first artist will be, this is the historical show. Okay, yes. 苏一荣苏老师 please. We welcome you to come to stage and share everyone with your art.
我讲台语吼，可能有人听无，可翻译嘛。非常欢喜哦，我要为着这个论坛吼，咱感谢咱北美吼台湾商会世界总会吼，甲陈秋贵董事长吼，恁的辛苦，恁的努力，做成一届论坛。我欢喜甲吼，2-3日拢困袂去，有可能是时差啦吼，但是因为困袂去对啦吼，非常的欢喜吼。即届我台南市人吼，我一个台南建成400年，做活动结束了，台南400年是台湾400年，所以吼，我台南来，我就听台湾吼，对，听台湾 ，OK， 所以我艺术人士，我10天前有来到纽约吼，我也真感谢阮uncle吼，苏春海吼，阮二叔吼，伊也真甲支持，真甲照顾。所以我伫纽约10天，10天后要倒来，转袂去。我甲伊讲吼，无哩，大家人足水安尼吼，这城市有够水吼，所以咱台湾即个电子业吼，IC 遮尔世界遮尔强，带陈董事长吼，伊也甲咱的艺术吼，带纽约这世界上重要的艺术的都市。纽约来咱声名咧台湾，咱的艺术路可能变台积电吼。谢谢。好，咱的，我有一个梦啦吼， 像咱科比才发达吼，咱的电子表才发达，咱的头壳已经也袂歹，咱的艺术吼应该嘛袂歹吼。所以这是一个国家的格局，就是咱日本出天皇篇是国宝吼，所以咱这台湾的宝吼，咱希望咱会当发光发亮吼。搁一点就是讲，我400年以来一届的这世界台湾典礼所吼，我伫台湾伫即个万华酒店吼，有足个好朋友拢有来，到一罐酒啊，我的酒叫做龙灯啦吼，400年啦吼，内底掀起来还有点电火吼，所以即个点电火是龙灯灯笼。还点光明灯吼，点光明灯，互咱台湾会当去光明400年，退下来会当去光明400年吼。你点光明灯的意思，咱台湾就是讲，当做夜灯嘛，当提灯笼，多功能啦吼，趣味。所以希望恁大家，今仔日我非常感动吼，也非常欢喜吼，咱台湾甲美国吼，即个论坛吼，实在是我是真正困袂去，今仔。困了结束会较好困啦，所以大家辛苦。酒店我就咧甲酒店讲，咱台湾吼，应该像美国安尼吼，当节税吼，咱努力看卖。咱台湾会当，歹势。那会当吼，咱台湾的艺术家就出头天啊吼。再次谢谢咱主办方吼，咱这贵宾多谢恁的支持。你来听讲，希望恁大家贵宾身体健康，万事如意，谢谢。
谢谢朱老师精彩分享。So the second artist would be Qiu Jianren. He is based in Taiwan and he won several big awards from Taiwan institutions, including a museum and the first prize for the painting award. And welcome him.
会长、各位贵宾，然后各位学者，然后还有大家好，会就是讲话或者什么，但是还蛮开心，这次说有这个机会来这边跟大家做一些交流。那我的作品就是在一进大厅的后面有一张，然后等一下这边出去也有我一些作品。那我的作品是以油画创作为主。然后，如果大家等下有兴趣的话，可以私下来找我聊聊，或是交流一下，对。然后也很感谢说，时光艺术这次带我跟我的作品来这边展览，然后也很谢谢陈秋惠董事长来支持我们台湾的艺术家，对。然后谢谢大家。
So this is the summary of his creation. The third artist is Wu Jianxin, also from Taiwan. And you see the big installation over there made by knife is his work. Let's welcome him.
大家好，我是艺术家吴建新。那很高兴这一次能来纽约这边，因为我2020年就来过一次，然后也很感谢呢还有油画作品。我的油画作品有趣的地方是呢，它是用黑油、机油、锅炉油做绘画，所以我在纽约呢，我找了一个类似的油，它是船使用的油，还有汽车使用的油。还有我们铺沥青的柏油下去做绘画。那待会呢，我希望呢，大家先看影片，然后我再介绍我的作品。大家好，关心我父亲的产业，慢慢的发现台湾历史跟产业链的转变。加这个主题后来呢，进入到了我父亲的产业。我父亲是涉水业黑手，我绘制了一个家族。那他的材料使用黑油、机油跟锅炉油。我在绘画完成的时候，当下的那一个还是清楚，但是会因为时间的关系，它会慢慢的模糊掉。我使用了一些物件作为绘画工具，其中包括了 那它就像个巧拼的概念一样，可以跟着我一直不断在改变的一件雕作品。过了一段很久的时间之后，当我回头看这件作品，看到了一个每个阶段的生命经验的变化。所以它最早从一个圆形的造型开始出发，然后慢慢变成一个家庭的造型，慢慢，甚至我把它扩大到它可以放大成整个空间。这是我新的系列作品，是我的概念是呢，透过转型跟手工再造的方式去处理我的作品。那这一系列作品呢，是我跟黑手师傅跟高阳欧秀一起合作生产。那么我解构了车体跟车子的符号，我使用它象征性的部位，就是引擎盖跟保险杆。材料本身它是时代的缩影，它反映了一种消费主义和现代化产物的意志。因为我使用的都是经过撞击再维修的材料。那同时呢，我其实借贷了汽车的流线造型设计。大家看一下，这个就是这样看起来就是看不出来它是引擎盖，实际上它全部都是引擎盖打造而成，而且都是由手工慢慢的敲打出那个曲面。这就是我和父亲一起敲打的作品。那可以看得出来，我的作品其实都跟自我家族的生命史跟产业史有关系。同时呢，我也透过艺术创作呢，达到一个关照自身跟反映时代的变化。因为我的车子它就跟着时代在前进，只要我可以用最现代的车子，我也可以用最旧的车子去做我的作品。那么，同时也透过我个人跟产业产生了一个对话关系。我是艺术家吴建新，谢谢。
谢谢。那我们接下来因为时间比较紧张，我们就邀请我们第3位也是美玲姐上台跟大家作为分享，然后会有艺术家杨金池一起上来，对不对？哦，还有好，那是薛巧涵的，交给你了。Sorry, because the second panel gonna start will be a little bit delayed, so we'll do Q&A when the second panel ends. Save the question to the last, and we have a lot of professionals can answer you all the detail and all the proposal you need. Thank you. Let's go back to Lucia.
Thank you. Welcome. Thank you everybody to come today. This is a very special floor room and the conference for arts. Especially we are bringing the bridge between the business from the Taiwanese American Arts Council, and it's called TAAC. And I also been a curator for over 20 years. And this time we introduce 3 artists from New York City. The first one, now these 2 is one is the artist Yang Jinchi, and Nunu Hong is represent the gallery, Nunu Hong Gallery represent Xue Qiaohan artist from New York. Right now it's not New York, but she will introduce what's going on about these artists. And then the other artist is Aline. Right now, she has a solo exhibition in Chelsea, C24 Gallery, and showing her very recent entire series of work that generate or interacted about the Moby Dick, to talking about the cross culture and the different culture that from the idea from the Moby Dick, that novel. But I think I would let the Jinchi to talk about your artwork first.
Hello, I'm so happy to be here as an artist. This is a good chance for me to talk about why I become an artist and art, what's the meaning to me. When I was a kid and I was farmer in Taiwan, so I always question his nature. Until today, it's like almost 30 years. I doing my career has never changed. I'm in New York City for almost 13 years. Everything is I use creativity. So whatever my emotion, my feelings, that is create my art. So I don't know how to explain anything. So I just let you guys to see. Thank you.
Walk to the hallway, don't ignore one piece, very special installation. That is the cutting the strap from recycled can of aluminum material, and then that reflects the environment. Jinchi is always focused on the ecology and the environmental protection and subjects with the relations between human being and the environment surrounding us. Next, Che Chao-Han currently lives and works in Germany, but she's very lucky to have a gallery such as Nuno Home Gallery in Soho right now. Okay, Nuno.
Hi, my name is Nuno Hong, and I actually didn't prepare for this, but I have lots of things to say. The artist you're going to see, and the painting you're going to see on the hallway is a very colorful, very energetic in August for the residency program, and so I'm here to talk about her work. So first, she graduated from Taipei, Taiwan Fine Art University, and after she graduated, she actually decided not to be an artist because she feel like there's no future for her. But after 6 years working for BMW as a reception desk lady, knowing nothing about BMW, and she decided to went to Berlin to visit her friend and doing the residency program. And maybe just something inspired her again. So she decided to apply to school in Hamburg, and she got in, and ever since that, her career started to really take off. And 需要用中文讲一遍吗？应该不用吧。好。And so in 2012, I had the chance to meet Che Chao-Han. And personally, I have a gallery in Taipei as well. And so we did a solo exhibition with her. And we're trying to focus on a statement, what she wants to say, not about her painting only. We want to focus what kind of person she is. Why she gave up after 6 years and she decided to restart to paint again. And the reason I point this out is because I think this gentleman you asked about how the emerging artists setting up the price, right? Yes. Okay. So what we're trying to bring this up is because gallery always need to work with the artists. So back that time, Che Chao has no idea about the price range of her painting, and we based on all her resume, her performance in the museums, and the response from the curators, from other collectors. So we set up the price. That's how the whole system start to work. And the artists get the price. So the price, what you see, the painting you saw outside there is supposed to be like $5,000 US like 3 years ago. And now, of course, it's $12,500 US. And you were asking me why I can't have that kind of, idea to increase the price, because over the years, she actually shows a lot with the museum and also the curators, and then we place the work in different private collection, also the corporate. So this kind of foundation to kind of let us know it's about the time to increase her price. So I hope that's answered your questions. So anyway, and about her work, because she grew up in a very, very traditional Taiwanese family. 她是那个南港薛家的小孩. And so when she was kids, and if she wears something like what I wear, the skirts above the knee, she will get smashed. that she will get punishment by her grandparents. And seriously, you know, her bottom is to all the way tied up to the neck. So after she come on like a real, after she can be able to using the oil pants to deliver her message, the first thing she wants to do is pet the naked woman, because it's kind of like liberal herself to, you know, to just send it back to her family, like this is really who I am. And as a young woman, I want to make sure everyone understands we should be very comfortable with our own body. Anyway, you will figure out, you will know which painting is hers like immediately you walk out of this room. Alright, I have another gallery in Soho, it's on Broome Street, so whoever lives here, welcome to visit. Thank you.
It's coming to Governor's Island to be our residency artist. And Yang Jinchi is now in Governor's Island. It's also our residency artist. And the piece that right now we show outside, it was made in Governor's Island last year. So that very special that a couple years ago, I think your appraisal price is about 10 times higher than the person who collect. So that if anyone collect his artwork, I believe will be more than 10 times this time. So it's very rare to collect the artwork. And again, of course, that this time in Chelsea, that C24 gallery is the second time and the first solo exhibition. The painting already been sold for almost half of the exhibition. So she is a very potential and a very big future artist. So I encourage that you see that his work combined with a little surreal and also the literature, the subjects. But the artwork is a lot of story behind and a lot of cultural mix. Because Lin Lin actually born in Taiwan, and since he was a child, he moved to Thailand and studied in UK and come to US. Right now lives and works in New York. And so the study in UK, also in Yale University, got a master's degree. So then in the academia training and everything, cultural influence. So make her artwork that two painting outside, you can detail to look at many stories inside.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. 那接下来我们会给大家2分钟的时间，稍微休息一下，喝个水，然后我们接下来会有一个 panel， 对。然后等一下 panel discussion 的与会者 Julia、Musa， 然后我们冯女士，还有魏会计师，对，麻烦你们可以先上台，就是先 get ready。那大家要2分钟的时间喝口水，交换个名片。
好久不见了。对啊，不容易。要肯定要的，在这吗？
我的翕吧。我又来了。不是在看，你甲说嗨，不是在看。
嗨，纽约。
不是的。
哦，这个在纽约。
吃的随便出去吃，没有吃到，随便吃。对啊。对啊，我回来看他们的10点多了。还有。
这一面，这一面。
我等一下再领，现在还没有空。等一下再领，等一下。
好，这个在下面。不好意思。
等一下，好不好？
Hello， 你好。
好哇！
辛苦了。
张秋雄的店长。
哦，他在台中。
我在了。
你有去跟他拜访吗？
有，他现在在看。你跟他 say hi。
张总会长好，干爹好。
对，他在这里也有那你怎么办？
你还要照顾他呀？
对。
今天就我们俩。他口渴。
睡哈。
I'm just gonna take pictures.
其实这个第二场panel其实我们一个很重要的，然后含金量超级高的一个资讯报表的 panel， 它是集聚3位非常专业人士亲身到这边帮我们做怎么去实际的操作和了解税制。那这一场的都是赢过很多奖项，在不同领域，尤其是白东女士、Musa， 然后魏丽人的社位，所以3位不同的背景将会带来非常资讯量，然后我们 Q&A 的 session 一样留到 panel 结束，或是中间大家有什么真的很想问的问题，可以跟我们的那个 Ashley 旁边，也可以跟 Ashley 说。那我们就开始。So the second panel will be focusing on the practical, like what we're gonna do step by step. And let me introduce our panelists, the Ms. Maimu Goro and Musa and Mr. Wei. We're gonna do like each introduction first and Q&A session at the end. Let's go with Maimu first.
Introduce myself first?
Sure, yes.
Okay. I actually can speak English and Mandarin as well as Taiwanese. I was born in Taiwan actually. until I was 15, and I came to this country, and was very fortunate. I always feel like in life, it's better to be lucky than smart. So the second month after I landed in this country, I was actually selected by National Science Foundation as one of the most talented science students, which has shocked me because in Taiwan, we're just an average science student, but we are 3 years ahead of the US in that standard. So I always believe, it's better to deal with perception than reality. If people want to think that I'm a genius, I'm a genius. That's it. So actually that enabled me to get into Columbia Engineering undergraduate. Despite that I had a tremendous passion for art throughout my early childhood and always determined to be an artist. But I remember the second day after I arrived in the US, my father told me that the paradigm has shifted. You are in a different environment and you should find an industry that you can survive. And since you don't speak English, the best route is engineering. And I was blessed with, the National Science Foundation selection. Naturally, I got admitted to Columbia Engineering, and I went on to get a full fellowship, went to Yale School of Management, and then worked for one of the top technology firms, Lucid Technology. Back then, it's like today's the top one in Google. And then after that, I transitioned into Merrill Lynch, who was leading financial industry, wealth management for the past 20 years.
No, you did a big job. My name is Amara Musa. I'm the founder of Art Writing Advisory in New York. My introduction is actually non-traditional. So I actually started working in the art industry right out of high school. I took an internship program at Sotheby's. It was at a time when my mother was like, hey, if you're not going to school, you gotta have to figure out what you want to do in life, right? So, as a kid, I wanted to do something that I was passionate about, and the number one question I always get is how come I was drawn to art? And I always tell people, being an inner city kid from New York City, you are exposed to so many creative spaces, and art was one of them that I was always attached to. Whether going to school, obviously trips to Ramona, obviously the Met, I was always attached to art. So I knew out of high school that I wanted to be in the arts. I just didn't know where. So I found myself at Sotheby's, really just understanding how the ecosystem was. I started as an art handler, graduated from art handler to a catalog where you do cataloging for the exhibitions that they have. And a little bit to know about the art world. Sotheby's is actually an auction house. Auction house is dedicated to primary, secondary market works, not primary works. So that's where I really got my education and learning the business side of arts, right? And knowing that, I was understanding that there wasn't an ecosystem inside of auction houses for primary artists. And I was always attached to artists that was up into the art space. So I actually started my company right out of Sotheby's that I worked in for 5 years, really just being a student to a lot of the emerging artists that was coming up into the art space. What I didn't know was all the art, 1 or 2 clients came to me and was like, hey, this artist that you told me about, I bought him for $5,000 and, I realized that he's at auction now for over $500 million. So he asked me, do you rather work at Sotheby's or do you want to work with me? And that's really how I started my advisory company, championing artists, but also educating clients and collectors how to not just collect art, but be stewards to the artists, whether it's donating to museums, whether it's obviously when it comes to institutions, they need institutional help, so loaning works to exhibitions, just really giving clients, which is the collectors, a well-rounded ecosystem of how the art industry works, because the art world is so big in so many ways. Especially, the last couple of years, a lot of these art fairs that you're seeing are now in places that it's not normally. If you think about Art Basel, right, which started in Switzerland, right? 2001, it went to Miami, and now 2013 went to Hong Kong. All those artists that was being shown at these art fairs are now shown in these places around the world. And I know someone asked, how can artists, or how can people collect art in different industries and different and different regions? And that's actually how it works, is that galleries have to be champions to the artists. And as an advisor, that's what I am to artists for the collectors.
Congratulations. I know you just won the list as the 20 advisor that shaping the world. So how do you feel? Do you walk on the street and people go, hey, can you ask you for a signature? And like, how do you feel as this powerful position that what we can do to, get to people who just started to fill up their art collection? What's the advice that you think the most important point? Did you see all the?
I think it's what every person that on the stage told earlier, is just collect what you love. Don't think about the tangible part to it, because that will naturally graduate itself, right? And for me, being on the list, I didn't look at that as, oh, I got it at the top. It's more of a reassuring that what I'm doing into the space is being recognized, and not only being recognized, that a lot of people, that when they see the art world, they only think about the gallery and the artist. And there's so many positions in the art space that goes into championing not only the artists, not only the galleries, but also the museums, right? Museums need help, and obviously what you're seeing right now in the world is that you're seeing private museums being open, right? So that's actually collectors opening up their own museums, championing the artists, because they realize that they have their own platform and influence into the space that can grow the artist's career even more. So just being on that list just reassures me that what I'm doing in the space is needed.
It's definitely, we really need someone who knows all the category, the training institutions. I would love to go back to Ms. Mino. Can we focusing on back to the focus on how we can use our fine arts dealing with the bank? Like, I know it's your expertise.
First of all, I really like to thank you, Thomas Chen, who really helped to organize this, and for people who have passion for art and other area, we really enjoy this kind of event to bring everybody together and to share information. So thank you so much. And also thank you that you can organize. I think today I want to focus on the purpose of art lending in wealth management. Art collection is actually a lot of hobby for very wealthy people. So it's like you buy a house, right? That's a real estate holding, and you buy stock and bond, so that grow your wealth. In addition, you have art collections that also grows wealth. So Merrill Lynch, to look at it, those are the three components of your total wealth generation, portfolio. So art collection is part of our portfolio. So like if you buy a house and you say, hey, I wanted to lend my house out, get a home equity line so I can get a cash flow to do something else. Similarly, you can use your equity portfolio as a lending vehicle. So Merrill also have a vehicle for you to lend your art collection. However, I have to say our art collection criteria is quite high, but that's okay. So the purpose of art lending is actually to generate cash flow, and also for you to do other investments, and also for philanthropy purpose. I can give you a couple of examples of who we're lending to in this space. We have someone who is in a real estate developer who has a very difficult time getting construction loan during the pandemic. So he needs to finish his project. And the way is, he also is a large collector of art. So he came to my company and uses the art collection to get a collateral loan out of it and finish his project. The other person is a hedge fund, someone who had a hedge fund and was trying to raise funds during the pandemic, and it was very difficult. So again, he's using his art collection to be part of the, to increase his cash flow so he can finish fundraising and get onto his project. So people use our lending for a different purpose. The bottom line is to increase your cash flow and you can do anything you want. I think that previously that people have talked about how the luxuria and also art actually has increased a lot in the past few years, except during the pandemic. However, I think they are recovering. I mean, you are probably more expert than I am to discuss this, but I think, like 2023, upper half, it's already up 22.6%. And Christie alone, in last year, 2023, is already have a luxury sale of $590 million. Now, in this room that we will talk about painting, but actually luxury item, or collectibles, including, Ming Dynasty, so-called the chicken cup. It was sold in 2014 for $36.3 million, and King Diamond in 2010 was sold for $46 million. A comic book, first version of Superman, was sold for $3.2 million in 2014. And Sneaker by Michael Jordan was sold for $2.2 million in 2023. So, you can have multiple different kinds of collection if you like. There's a lot of famous collectors, such as Paul Allen, who is one of the founders for Microsoft. His art collection is over $1.6 billion. Harry Marklow, who many of you in real estate probably know him in New York City, he has a collection of $92 million. Okay. So I just wanted to point out that Merrill Lynch is about 10 to 12 years ago, we actually hired the guy who had the seat. His name is Joel Watson. You know him? Yeah, he has joined Merrill Lynch since. And what he has done for us is to help clients who has art collections to be able to create a lending portfolio. So create liquidity, and we can also negotiate the sale of art and collectible at auction house. And also help you to do the legacy planning. Let's say there's a certain piece you may want to inherit it through multiple generations in your household. We can make that suggestion, or we can help you to donate it to charitable institution, or create a private museum that you can house all your collections. We can also help you to consign with auction house consignment, and also lending and consulting service.
That's very helpful. So we know there are many different needs of individual or business or entrepreneur that can use collection for their needs. And I have to introduce Mr. Wei, and he is the managing partner of Wei & Co. LLP, and one of the top 200 firms in New York, a very respectful experience, Mr. Wei, and he also prepared a very insightful PPT that we can share with the audience.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here today. Actually, not the top 200 firm, but rather I'm the managing partner of Weiwei Company. We're the largest Chinese-owned CPA firm here in the U.S. We have offices here in New York, in California, and in Beijing. So that's a little bit about me, but can we roll this forward? So why am I here today? Well, standard disclaimer. Can we go back for a second? So this material has been prepared for informational purposes only. It's not intended to provide any tax advice, legal advice, or accounting advice. You should consult your tax, legal, and accounting advisor should you want to engage in any transaction. Next slide, please. So a little bit about myself. I am a CPA, but I'm also a collector. I've been collecting for over 20 years and have donated within this past 20 years to different museums and institutions. So our learning objective today is to figure out what you can contribute, how to claim a deduction for that contribution, who can receive your contribution, and how much you can deduct. Next slide, please. So we can contribute a variety of things from cash to artwork and everything in between. I have a short list there for you, but artwork is considered a non-cash contribution. There are certain limitations as it relates to non-cash contributions. They could include paintings, drawings, photographs, videos, sculptures, and other expression of ideas that take some sort of medium. Next. So how do you claim a deduction? First, you have to file a 1040, which is your individual tax return. You have to itemize deduction. If you take a standard deduction, you would not benefit from a contribution. For donations in excess of $500, you need to file a Form 8283. And for donations in excess of $5,000, you need to have a donee acknowledgement as well as an appraisal. So who can receive your donations? You have Category 1, you have Category 2 organizations. We're going to focus our conversation on Category 1. They're also called 50% limit organizations. So next page. So what are included in Category 1? They include churches, educational institutions such as universities and colleges, the government, U.S. government, state and local governments, publicly supported charitable organizations, your typical 501c3 organizations, and museums. And then, of course, we have private operating foundations. So how much can we deduct? So we like to deduct fair market value, but you can only deduct fair market value if the artwork is held for more than 1 year. If the artwork is held for less than 1 year, you can only deduct the cost or the basis of that artwork. So generally, and this is at a high level, generally there are many different limitations, but you can usually deduct 30% of your adjusted gross income, which is line 11 of your 1044. Now, anything that you do not deduct in the current year, you're able to carry forward for future deductions up to 5 years. Next. So let's take a practical example. The artwork that you acquired as a collector, you purchased for $50,000. You enjoy the artwork for a period of time. You identify an organization to donate to. You had enough of the artwork. It's time for other people to enjoy. Now the artwork is appraised by a qualified appraiser for $500,000. Your adjusted gross income is $1 million. And hypothetically, your aggregate tax rate, federal, state, and local combined, is 50%. So who can tell me what the net benefit would be if you held the artwork for 1 year or less. Casino.
50,000.
Right. So your deduction of tax benefit. Next. So the key takeaways are these. First, you have to buy art that you enjoy and you can live with. You have to buy quality art from a reputable gallery, dealer, or artist. Keep your artwork for more than a year, hopefully many years. Find a home for your donation in category 1. Obtain an appraisal from a qualified appraiser. And keep your accountant and tax advisor informed. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I believe this is, we need you. When we go through this, I feel like, oh, it's better just have a meeting with you and then everything's sorted out. Yeah. And I know you have 2 sons. Do you go to gallery with them? Do they become or like art, start collecting when they are young?
Both of my sons enjoy art. My older son, who graduated last year from Columbia, he's an amateur artist. And my younger son has no interest in art. He's a little bit different. He's more athletic. So he's in the Junior Olympics for water polo and for swimming.
Wow, it's amazing.
Do they understand that the collection that you build, you pass it down to them?
Yeah, they don't know. And my wife, she believes that I'm not using my resources properly. Which I disagree.
Thank you for your sharing. Because I know we have our panel going to end within 50 minutes, and I would like to save this time for our guests to ask questions if you have any.
Hello, thank you. I am the Associate Dean of the Queens College School of Arts, and we prepare our students who are in their majority people of color and people from immigrant households to be successful practicing artists, but also to consider other options within the arts, such as arts administration or going into the business of art. And so we're always looking for opportunities for them in doing internships, for example. We have a now with some students graduating, say today, if they wanted to go into the business of art, on the one hand, and on the other, I would love to leave you all my card and encourage you to consider Queens College a real resource for you if you're looking for interns, including in accounting, which we had a very strong program in, and because our students are really hard workers, they're hungry, and they know that they really need to put the effort to succeed. And so, thank you so much.
Yeah, I mean, I always tell people, especially when they first start into wanting to be in the art space, I always kind of break it down very, very basic to them. Each space provides a certain criteria. If you think about museums, it's more educational, right? So you're thinking about an art historian, you're thinking about a curator, you're thinking in that aspect, right? If you think about a gallery, I always tell people it's good to go to a gallery, but just know that you are dedicated to one program, where galleries have many different programs, right? And an auction house, I always say, is the ultimate business side of it because it's the landmark of opportunity. As she explained, there's many things that you can sell, and it's usually at an auction house, whether it's diamonds, whether it's watches, whether it's sports memorabilia, art, sculpture. It's really what you see fit that you want to be a part of. And I always tell people that always take it with a grain of salt, because when you look at these auction records, that doesn't define the actual artist's career, right? I think that's super important. Because sometimes when people see a price of say Twombly or Basquiat, and they see that number, they think that that's the number that defines that particular artist, and I always tell them that it doesn't. So always come into any space with open mind, especially in art.
At Bank of America and Merrill Lynch, we have very structured internship program, and you have to apply at least 1 year ahead. Currently, we have a freeze for 2024, but they did open for 2025, and actually, I think it's already past the deadline. But you can actually Google it, you know, and the program will jump up. In the past, like in my department, if I want to intern, since I'm paying the money, I can choose anyone I want. But now with the anti-corruption or whatever the act that they have within our government, I no longer have the power to decide who I can have intern with. So you have to go through the COBRA program. Unfortunately, that's the way it is.
Thank you. I just received a question from our guests, and when we try to talk, it is. I got a question from our guest, and she wants to have some suggestion from Dr. Fassino, because they say you're a big collector, and what's your advice for our guests when you, what's the memorable moment when you do your art collection? They want to know.
Well, that's very personal in itself. You know, when we collected, I collected it in the college, as an academic institution. So our purpose is to serve the students and the community. So that is the main thing we have in the gallery and in the college, which can be totally different of a personal collection. Personal collection can be anything that entices you or you fall in love with. It can be shoes, for example. Okay? But when you're talking about an academic institution, you have to find not only the guidelines of the college or the institution, but also develop some kind of logic, so that is helpful for the academics, to the college, and also to the community to attend to things that they had to go, example, to Manhattan. Okay.
I have a question. I'm at Queens College and I oversee the professional arts organizations. And I know the two women that run our museum, the Godwin Turnback, everybody wants to donate artwork, but very few appreciate that it costs money for the museum to maintain that artwork, to catalog that artwork, to protect it, to insure it. How do we get the collectors to also understand that and contribute towards some of the operating costs of maintaining that collection?
Good point.
Or is that just not done?
So the question is for
asking for a cash donation.
Along with it, yeah.
Along with the...
And do collectors understand that?
Usually when collectors get their works appraised, it's usually a process, right? So say for instance, if there's a collector that had a work for 30 years and he has to get it appraised, I always tell them to first take it to conservators, look at it, because that determines the final determination of the valuation of the actual artwork. And you always just want to maintain that particular piece, right? I always tell all my clients, you gotta look at your artwork like all your kids, you know, like you can have 100 kids, 100 artworks, you have 100 kids, right? and you really maintaining it just like how you for your child. So that's down to going to serve a lot of our clients. They live in multiple places, so a lot of stuff travel. So I tell them, hey, listen, make sure you don't go to a regular shipper, go to an art shipper, because they do white gloves where they really maintain it and take care of it, right? So for me as an advisor, that's the part of the education I was telling you guys about, that I educate my clients about, that there's not just the purchase of part, but there's a part to actually maintain that particular artwork. And even think about even if you think about corporations, right? JP Mortgage has one of the biggest, corporate collections, right? Because of David Rockefeller, right? And he was collecting these works 40, 50 years ago, right? And those works wasn't of value at that particular time, right? But he understood that him being a student, not only in his personal collection, but a corporate collection, after he goes, these works are still gonna be there, right? That particular corporation is steward to over 20,000 works. Owning 20,000 works, you have to have an actual operation cost to maintain those 20,000 works, right? Because those 20,000 works are not just sitting in storage, right? They are in the most prestigious museums around the world. Even if they are in storage, you have to look at it. I know when it comes to art shippers and art handlers, they look at it due diligently every year. So even if it's in storage, they are still maintaining it and still looking at it. So I always tell people, my clients, that just don't think about it as you just buying a work, and there's not one process to it.
Do we have any, thank you for your question, and our panelists. Do you have any other question that we can share?
This question may be for Mr. Wei. I think you give a very attractive example that appraisal is 6 times more than the original purchasing price. What if the appraisal value come to very close to the original purchasing price? What would be the benefits?
So that would be very similar to the example where when you make a donation, it's almost equivalent to the cost, right? So the benefit is perhaps for the museum or the institution, for you, maybe less benefit.
Correct.
Right.
So obviously, in order to really see the benefit for me, you need to find something that has changed to appreciate. The appraisal value will be higher. So who are the people, what would be the typical, what would you recommend, the type of the collection that potentially can give you the benefits?
So they're right here, right? The people who can recommend potential artists that you should collect. But definitely, the IRS has a rule regarding 1 year and over 1 year for a reason. There's no way that within a year, the price of a particular object will appreciate that much unless it's a special artist. So if you hold something for 4, 5, 6 years, and assuming that you went in, intention was to enjoy the art and not to do it for a business purpose or a tax purpose, then you've enjoyed it for 5 years. And then if you get a deduction, that's awesome. If you don't get the deduction that you would like, as much as you would like, then yeah.
Thank you.
Right.
Any other comments?
Yeah, really speaking for what he was mentioning, there are those rare occasions. I know there was one artist recently, his name is Matthew Vaughn, who was a young artist who passed away, and when he passed away, his market shot right up, right within a 1 year span. So you do have those rare occasions when that happens, where clients see that and they only work for over a year and it goes back to a given raise, and obviously it's X, 10X what it is. But even with that, you shouldn't want to sell it right away, because I always tell clients that might not also be peak, right? It's also timing when it comes to donating and selling, right? If an artist has a retrospect, right, where it's a retrospect of his overall creative practice, right, that's a perfect time to donate work, right? And so there's different times where you should think about that. I think that's important.
Yeah, the rule of thumb in wealth management is you should have the donation which maximize your capital gain. So the higher the gain you donate out, and the whole amount you can write off throughout the year. If you donate something which is at your cost or loss, as far as we're concerned. Thank you.
So we have the saying, let's grow in time and go along with the river and walk with the expertise. Thank you very much. I think we're going to wrap up in 5 minutes. And anything we are missing that we cannot answer your question or any feedback?
Okay, I actually have a question regarding the loan process. So if we place the art for you to issue a loan as a collateral, what happens with the art? Do I still keep the art, or is the art going to your designated locations to hold? And then the other question is, what happens if the loan is not being repaid? Are you guys foreclosing the art? And then what happens with that situation?
To answer your first question, you can actually still hold the art in your house or whatever you're holding. Okay? We don't necessarily have to possess that, although there must be legal documents to talk about the contract that would indicate that you're holding the piece. Okay? Second question, you say our loan to LTV, loan to rate ratio is 50%. So if you have an art collection of $10 million, we only loan you $5 million, right? If you don't repay, I guess we will force, just like your house, right? If you don't pay your payment, then we will possess the art that you have.
So is there a secondary market for those foreclosing situations?
Yeah.
So basically,
There's a very large collector as well. As a company, we have a very large collection of art. So I'm sure that if we hire the guy from the state, right, and he probably going to help us out on this, right? In terms of place for all.
thank you.
Any questions? We actually present some gift from our presidents that is fly over from Taiwan for our dear speaker. Please, speaker, we have prepared the gift for you. Yeah, from the presidents of Taiwan. So this is the thank you. And we have photographer. This is one of the highlight moments for me for the photographer. Thank you, thank you. So maybe we can take a photo.
各位我们台商前辈，因为你们事业都很成功，那也一定很多资产。我是期待说我们大家一起来帮助台湾的艺术家，也直接也帮助我们。那这个收藏啊，还有这个donation，这个比较属于个人私人的这个隐私，所以你们可以直接多找他们，直接找他们会比较好，直接找他们跟这个比如说我们的总会长啊，联会总会长钱多很多，他不希望让人家知道，不用透过我，要不然我不小心把你们讲出去，大家都要找你监管，好，你们就直接找他，好，谢谢。
We draw for our guests who can also get the present. Hans Wong, CPA. Mr. Hong, are you here? Okay. Okay, that's good. Oh, Elba from Crystal, get a little different. Should we skip Elba? Okay, Steve Chow from Asian American Entrance Group. And Julia from Crystal. Please come forward.
어, 잠깐만 더.